Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. 2 nights ago, Russia launched another massive missile and drone attack. Ukrainian air defenses intercepted 26 out of 39 missiles and 58 out of 60 drones. That's pretty good, but Russian missiles are still getting through and hitting their targets. And Russia continues to target hydroelectric power plants. Here's a tweet from President Seninsky. I want to read this. Ukraine's Kharkiv and Dniester hydroelectric power plants were among the deliberate targets of Russian mass airstrikes this night. The terrorist state of Russia wishes to repeat the ecological disaster in the Kherson region following Russia's destruction of the Kharkiv hydroelectric power plant. This time, not only Ukraine, but also Moldova is at risk. Water will not stop at border posts, just as the Russian war will not stop, unless it is stopped in time here in Ukraine. Here's the map of Ukraine's hydroelectric power plants. Last year, the Russians blew up the Kherson Dam prior to Ukraine's summer counteroffensive. Last week, they struck the Dnipro hydroelectric power plant. This is Ukraine's largest dam, and they hit it with 8 cruise missiles. So these other 2 hydroelectric power plants struck 2 nights ago. One is located here, and the other is located here. This river and this reservoir flows into Moldova. If Russia were to destroy this dam, which they're trying to do, the flooding would occur downstream in Moldova. Russia doesn't care about Moldova. They're going to take Moldova if they can succeed in Ukraine. 80% of DTEC's energy capacity damaged, destroyed after Russian March attacks. In March, Russian attacks damaged or completely destroyed 80% of the thermal generating capacity of Ukraine's largest private energy company, DTEC. So this is the result of Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans blocking military aid from the United States for over 6 months. For 2 winters, Russia has tried to destroy these thermal electric plants, unable to do so because Ukraine had pretty good air defenses. But given that Ukraine is not being resupplied with proper amounts of air defense missiles from the United States, Ukraine is having to pick and choose which missiles get through. And the destruction of these power plants, this is going to cost billions of dollars and take years for Ukraine to rebuild. This is what Russia wanted. This is what Russia wanted MAGA Republicans to do. Polish Prime Minister Tusk warns Europe has entered a pre-war era. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, whose country has been one of the staunchest supporters of Ukraine, said Friday that if Kyiv is lost, no one in Europe would feel safe from the Russians. Here's the map that I show you guys of the maximum extent of the Russian Empire prior to World War I and their collapse in 1918. But maybe this map is better. This map, I feel, shows you the magnitude and scale of how big the Russian Empire got prior to World War I and World War II. For centuries, 500 years, the Muscovites, calling themselves Russians, expanded east, expanded south, expanded west, expanded north, fighting continuous wars for centuries to get this big. This is the map that Vladimir Putin looks at. This is the map that Russian elites say, well, if it once belonged to us, it should belong to us again. Finland doesn't exist. The Baltics doesn't exist. Poland didn't exist. Ukraine, Moldova, Armenia, Azerbaijan, the Central Asian republics. It could take decades of continuous war, millions dead, but Putin has committed his regime and the Russian people to go down this path. We can prevent decades of future wars if we just help Ukraine win this war today. Stop the Russians, before the snowball gets rolling and Russia gets even bigger. And in a way, I think this is what the Russians and the Chinese actually want. They don't like the current rules-based order of international law. They're trying to upend it. The most basic rule, the most basic principle of modern international law is you can't steal your neighbor's territory. You can't just invade the country next to you, absorb them, and then redraw the map. And this is what the Chinese and the Russians want. This map is one of my favorite maps. It's a fictional map. But this is the map of the three superpowers in George Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984. He wrote this book in 1948, after World War II, trying to predict this dystopian future, hopefully trying to avoid it. But in this fictional world, the United States is not the lone global hegemon. Power is shared equally, more or less, from three hegemonic societies, Eurasia and East Asia. But we all know who these two countries are. In this fictional world, the Russians dominate Europe and Africa, the Chinese dominate East and Southeast Asia, and the United States and the old British Empire, united under Oceania, controls more or less North and South America. And I'm not joking, this is what the Russians and the Chinese want. They want a retreat of global US power. They don't want the United States Navy patrolling the world's oceans, guaranteeing free trade. The Russians want dominion as the hegemon over Europe and Africa. They want to write the security policies for all these countries, all these people. They want to pick the leaders and control the governments indirectly of all these people. And same with the Chinese. The Chinese want to expand. They want to write the security policies for Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Southeast Asia. If there's a government or a leader they don't like, they want to use their military to replace that person. They want to directly or indirectly control all of these peoples and territories. And they're fine. The Russians and the Chinese are fine if the United States remains the hegemon of the Western Hemisphere, directly or indirectly controlling the countries of North and South America. This is honestly what I believe the Russians and the Chinese have offered Donald Trump. We'll help you get elected president in November if you just pull the US military back. Abandon Africa, abandon Europe, abandon Asia, and let us become the regional hegemons of these three continents. There's a lot to be critical of the United States, given our interventions the last 70 years. But if you live in this part of the world, I guarantee you're not going to like it when the Russians and the Chinese start militarily intervening anywhere they think it's prosperous or beneficial for them. Ukraine's offer of peace talks based on Zelensky's peace plan gets a frosty reception from the Russians. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Kuleba signaled Kyiv's readiness to negotiate with Moscow during a TV interview while visiting India. There's lots of countries pretending to be neutral. India is one of them, saying, why doesn't Ukraine want peace? So, to appease the Indians, Kuleba on state TV said, President Zelensky has a peace plan. We'd love to sit down with the Russians and discuss it. But the Russians don't want peace. The Russians want their empire back. They want war. They're going to continue killing as many people as they think they need to kill to get their empire back. Russia is outgunning Ukraine sixfold, according to Kyiv's top general. With military aid from the United States being blocked, Russia thinks they're winning. Why would you negotiate or offer peace when you think you can keep advancing? Sure, Russia will lose more soldiers and more money, but they think in the long run it's worth it if they can get more territory. If you want peace, if you want the Russians to negotiate, then the Ukrainians have to have overwhelming force on the battlefield, and the Ukrainians have to be advancing. In that scenario, I guarantee the Russians will then be willing to go to negotiations. According to UK intelligence, Russia is recruiting 30,000 fresh troops every month to go to Ukraine. I show you this graphic every single day. Wounded and killed or captured, how many Russian soldiers are being lost a day? And it's probably about 1,000 a day. So if they're recruiting 30,000 a month, Russia has stabilized. They've figured out how to perfectly regenerate their combat forces in Ukraine. Now, of course, these guys don't have as much experience, they don't have as much training, they're not as good of soldiers as those Spetsnaz special forces that were just massacred, but Russia doesn't care. They'll just keep sending their guys to die. And now that we're past Putin's presidential election, here it is. Putin signs decree to conscript 150,000 more Russians for military service. These are not veterans. These are not people that already have training and experience. These are brand new soldiers. But mobilization is coming. At some point in the next 2 months, I believe, Putin will announce another round of mass mobilization, and 300 to 500,000 Russian veterans will be called back into military service and sent to Ukraine. President Zelensky states Russian troops may launch a new offensive by May or June. The weather is working for Ukraine at the moment. It's mud season. Open fields are basically marshes. You can't get through them with armored vehicles. So the next major Russian offensive is coming probably May or June, when the ground dries out and it's hard enough to cross. But where is it coming from? Are the Russians going to try to attack Kyiv again? Are they going to try to advance into the Sumy or Chernihiv regions? Are they going to double down on the Donbass region? Isn't that what this entire war was supposed to be about? But everyone's talking about the city of Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, pre-war population about 1.5 million. And the Russians want to destroy this city. That's not my opinion. Solyov, every day on Kremlin State TV, states this. Here's another clip from Russian Media Monitor. Vladimir Solyov wants Kharkiv to be destroyed. So let me play this clip for you. I'm going to read this. I'll say it once again. Solyov loves repeating himself. Kharkiv should be erased off the face of the earth. Very simply, so there are no illusions. But we should start with Kyiv. We should simply destroy all of those governmental, erase everything off the face of the earth. What's the name? Concha Zaspa. This is a historic neighborhood in Kyiv. Erase Concha Zaspa so there is nothing left. Nothing but radioactive dust. Either way, your words are getting through and are being accepted by the public opinion. Either way, we are moving in this direction. In this studio, we have named many other objects against which strikes should be conducted. I'll repeat it once more. I have no pity for anyone there, and their guests either. I pity my own people here, my people from Donetsk, Luhansk, Crimea, Kursk, Belgorod, Varennes, Moscow, St. Petersburg. I pity my people. It's pretty interesting that he didn't mention Kherson or Zaporizhia, two additional territories that Russia is occupying. I guess he doesn't view those as his people. Armenia blocks Pro Kremlin TV host shows. Armenia was part of Russia's CSTO military alliance, but given their dispute with Azerbaijan, Russia can't help them, and Armenia is looking for a new security guarantor. So Armenia is not happy with the Russians, and Solyov has threatened to invade and destroy Armenia several times. So it makes sense to block his broadcast. I don't think Kremlin State TV or Russian propaganda should be allowed to be broadcast anywhere in the West. More countries should proactively block these people who are calling for genocide, calling for the destruction of major cities, 1.5 million people. So where are we at? The Prime Minister of Poland is saying we're on the cusp of World War III. We're in a pre-war period. And the Allies are starting to wake up. France-led coalition of allies could portend Western troops to Ukraine. I do believe by the end of this year, France will send some of their own soldiers to Ukraine, not to fight on the front lines, but Ukraine needs maintainers, they need logisticians, they need trainers, they need anybody that can help in a supporting role. I think France is going to do it, and they're probably going to find citizens from other countries also willing to go in to help Ukraine on the ground. Ukraine could get millions of artillery shells, and soon it's getting its best guns ready to fire away. So this article is saying that the Ukrainians are already putting repairs into, for example, damaged M777 howitzers. The Czech-led initiative has secured enough funds for the first 800,000 rounds, but whatever country or company is dealing with the Czech government, they said they can go up to 1.5 million rounds. These shells will start arriving this summer, but it's going to be a consistent flow through the end of the year. This is good news. Putin says Russia does not intend to attack NATO, but air bases hosting F-16s would be legitimate targets. Russia seems pretty nervous about the arrival of these F-16s this summer. It's going to be a gradual introduction. First, a couple pilots, a couple planes. There are lots of Ukrainian pilots on different timetables for learning how to fly. Ukraine also has to protect these planes and set up supply and maintenance to keep all these planes flying. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be difficult. Russia is going to be hunting these planes like crazy, but I do think they're going to have an impact on the battlefield starting this summer. According to President Seninsky, the U.S. reaction to attacks on Russian refineries was not positive, but it is a fair play. Seninsky himself did state that the United States expressed their not encouragement of Ukraine attacking Russian oil refineries. Are there certain policymakers in the White House who think about the global price of gasoline and diesel, concerned about how that might affect Biden in the upcoming election? Yes, that's their job. But I don't think President Biden or the White House is condemning or discouraging these attacks. They're just going on record for the Russians to hear them that they're not encouraging them. I tried to make this point in my last video. There's a distinction in political speak between not encouraging and discouraging. There's this gray area in between. That's where the White House is trying to play this. Ukraine is going to continue these attacks on Russian oil refineries. Putin's oil industry is in trouble. Russia has already gone from a net exporter of refined petroleum products to now a net importer. Putin has already told Belarus, you can't export gas or diesel anymore. You have to send it to Russia because we need it. 6 more months of these kinds of attacks on refineries, and Putin's war machine will grind to a halt. We cannot afford any further delays. White House to Congress on Ukraine's air defense needs. Russia is destroying thermal power plants and hydroelectric power plants because Ukraine needs more air defenses and they need more air defense missiles. If there's no US aid, there's no choice but to retreat. This is what President Zelensky is warning to the world. I wish the Europeans had the political will and the weapons in their inventories to support Ukraine through this war. But the United States is supposed to be the arsenal of democracy. For 70 years, we've been telling the Europeans, if the Russians or the Chinese or whoever try something, we're your ally. We got your back. It's Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans who are currently stabbing our allies in the back. Zelensky urges U.S. House Speaker to pass legislation for more arms to Ukraine. Something's going to happen in the month of April. Today is Easter, March 31st. But I think something's going to pass this month because political pressure on Speaker Johnson is just intolerable at this point. So there's several paths to get there. One, Marjorie Taylor Greene initiated a motion to vacate the chair. I don't know if she's going to go through with it. Congress is on a 2-week vacation. They take a 2-week vacation every month. So Speaker Johnson could be removed by his own MAGA caucus. The second option is more Reagan Republicans just resign from Congress in protest. In the last 4 months, McCarthy, Ken Buck, Mike Gallagher, and there was one other in January. These are traditional conservative Reagan Republicans who are strong on national defense and they don't support Russia or China. They can continue resigning. And I think if two more traditional conservative Reagan Republicans just quit the party, quit Congress, then MAGA Speaker Mike Johnson will lose the gavel. Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats will take over. This could happen this month. And then they can schedule a vote on military aid for Ukraine. The third option is the discharge petition. You can't sign the petition when the House is not in session. We still need 27 more signatures. No House Republicans have signed it yet because I don't think they want to put their name on something that doesn't go anywhere. So I think if we can get 7 more House Democrats to sign it, and we only need about 20 House Republicans to then sign it, we can get the discharge petition through and get an up or down vote on the Senate's version of the bill. Now, Speaker Johnson is a liar, and he's a trickster, and he's going to attempt to waste more time. So there's talks about, instead of military aid, having it be a loan, but he's just trying to find a way to help Russia by crafting a version of a bill that then has to go to the Senate. If it can't get 60 votes in the Senate, it'll just die. I also want to mention this story, a very grim milestone. Evan Gershkovich marks 1 year in Russian prison. Evan is a reporter with the Wall Street Journal. His crime in Russia was being a journalist and reporting on what was happening in Russia. Here's the front page of the Wall Street Journal. It's completely blank. And this says, his story should be here. A year in Russian prison, a year of stolen stories, stolen joys, stolen memories. And Speaker Mike Johnson on Twitter has the audacity to try to appeal to people outraged that a U.S. citizen, a U.S. journalist, has been held by the Russians for over a year. On the 1-year anniversary of Evan Gershkovich's wrongful detention by Russia, we continue to condemn his baseless arrest and repeat our calls for his release. So I left the speaker a comment, and this is what I said. You could prove your condemnation and disapproval by allowing a simple up or down vote on military aid for Ukraine. But you aren't going to do that because you serve Russia. The Russians are killing and imprisoning American citizens, and you continue to protect the Kremlin. I don't know the official number, but I know dozens of American volunteers who have gone to Ukraine to help the Ukrainian military have been killed by the Russians. I also just want to pat myself on the back. I out-ratioed the Speaker of the House. So his post on Twitter got 156 retweets, 764 likes, and my comment on his post got 1,300 likes and 236 retweets. On social media, on Twitter, this is called out-ratioing the person from the original post. And I just out-ratioed the second most powerful man in the United States government. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. France will deliver a shipment of Aster 30 anti-aircraft missiles and hundreds of armored vehicles to Ukraine as part of their latest military aid package. France is no longer giving dollar amounts or stating specifically what's in these packages. France is being a little sneaky these days. Belgium approved their 25th assistance package for Ukraine, containing 100 million euros. This will go towards the maintenance and support of F-16 fighter jets through the International Fighter Jet Coalition. Thank you so much to the amazing people of Belgium. Ukraine has secured a 1.5 billion tranche from the World Bank. This money came from Japan, 984 million, and the United Kingdom, 516 million. Thank you so much to the amazing people of Japan and the United Kingdom. Final clip I want to share with you once again is from Richard Woodruff. He is a British volunteer with the humanitarian organization Frontline Kitchen. And this is his video from yesterday. He's in the city of Lviv, and the air raid sirens go off pretty frequently these days.
If you'd like to know what living in Ukraine is like, it being 12:30 in the morning, tired as hell, halfway through building yourself a little FPV drone for the front, which obviously we don't do because we do not make drones, and getting the alert on your telephone that you have 6 Tu-95 Russian strategic bombers on their way to you, and they'll be launching their missiles at 3:15, and they should arrive in your area around 4. So yeah, that is the morning of a Ukrainian. So now we will not just sit here and wait for the rockets to arrive, but we will continue building in the hope that they miss, and tomorrow we can send them some justice in return. Slava Ukraini.
So once again, Richard Woodruff does not make drones. And if you want to help him not make FPV drones, I'll put his link down to his charity organization, Frontline Kitchen. This is their PayPal account if you want to make a donation so they continue not making FPV drones. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.